I first met Tyler actually on apple farms with pollinator habitat, and had the pleasure of working with our National Honor Society installing pollinator habitat here on Manistee's high school's campus too. Tyler earned his bachelor's degree in natural resource management from Grand Valley State University in 2016. After graduating, he served as a habitat restoration technician with Army Corps for a year before moving to Thailand to teach English. Upon returning to the U.S. in 2019, Tyler joined the Manistee Conservation District as a grant-funded conservation technician implementing federal cost-share programs for landowner conservation. In 2023, he was promoted to his current role as a conservation specialist. Today, he is here to share how the Manistee Conservation District supports water quality initiatives in Manistee County and how you can help. All right.
Thanks, Kevin. I always like to start our presentations with what exactly the Conservation District is and what we do. So we are a local unit of government. Conservation districts were established in 1945 around the Dust Bowl era to put stewardship at the local level and try and help local landowners with conservation outside of those state agencies or those federal agencies. Having a local presence was important. So we are a little bit different from the state agencies in our funding sources. So some conservation districts are lucky enough, like we are in Manistee, to have community support and a millage. So part of my position is millage funding, but a lot of conservation districts throughout the state of Michigan are all grant funded. So problems facing conservation districts is often a lot of turnover. Obviously, we see, funding freezes and how that can impact conservation districts. So having the support of the local community for your conservation district is really important. We're so thankful that you guys support us. So what we try to do at the conservation district is focus on the local needs. So we do site visits with landowners at no cost for any of our technical experience. So if somebody has questions about their property, we'll come out to your property, tour your property, provide you with suggestions. If you're trying to do something, we'll tell you, the best way that you can do it, or, hey, have you thought about doing something different because maybe your soil conditions aren't right for that sort of thing. So that's what we do directly with landowners and constituents in Manistee County. But then we also do a lot of county-wide things. I've already got ahead of myself talking about programs, but we'll work through it. So why conservation matters. So Manistee County, we're in northern Michigan. Our rivers, lakes, and streams are a huge asset. When people picture up north in Michigan, that is what they're picturing. Our forests, our rivers, our streams, not just for recreation, but for use of that clean water. So the Manistee Conservation District is very focused on protecting those assets that we have. So some of the threats that we have for water is obviously pollution, but we have other threats as well. Invasive species, habitat degradation is a big one. And then our role at the Conservation District is monitoring those things, applying for maybe grants for restoration, working with local groups for restoration activities. A lot of restoration activities like you just saw from the Plaster Creek stewards, similar things, and trying to educate the community, attending these workshops, hosting events for people to come to, those types of things. So we are an education source first, which I think you kind of pointed out. We are your local tool for education and expertise on conservation. So now I'll just kind of run you guys through what our main programs are at the Conservation District. So as the conservation specialist, I primarily focus on our water quality efforts through the Conservation District, and that includes our volunteer stream monitoring program. So this is a citizen science-based program. So it's not something that I or the Conservation District can do alone. This requires you guys, the landowners, to be involved. So volunteer stream monitoring program is a program that is established by Michigan Clean Water Corps, so my Corps. And it is essentially a simplistic version of collecting scientific data that volunteers can do with no experience, no expertise needed. And it's a good way to get those that are interested in doing something in their community out to be able to learn, to take, I guess, take the initiative to, or ownership over your resources in your backyard. So just a quick rundown on our volunteer stream monitoring program. So we have 10 sites on the lower Manistee River watershed. So I'm sure throughout the presentations today, you guys have heard about watersheds, but this boundary all the way through here and all the way down the Little Manistee and the Pine River is all part of the lower Manistee watershed. And it actually continues and extends up all the way to the Grayling area and the headwaters of the Manistee River. But our focus is predominantly Manistee County and then into Lake County and Wexford County. So just a little fact with our volunteer stream monitoring and what it takes to keep that going. We had 243 volunteer hours in 2024 between our two events. So we sample one day in the spring and one day in the fall. So that's what it takes to kind of keep this program going. So to give you a little more background on what it actually is that we are doing, we're collecting bugs, essentially. So we are collecting macroinvertebrates, and macroinvertebrates are essentially that easy way to assess stream quality. So within the realm of macroinvertebrates, you have different sensitivity levels to pollution. So what we can do is we can identify and look at the abundance of different species that we can collect from a stream system, and something like a stonefly has a very low tolerance of pollution, and something like a scud over here is a moderate to high tolerance to pollution. So over the entire sample set, we can take this abundance of what we're looking at, assign a rating for how sensitive it is to pollution, and then from there, get to our water quality rating. And this is something that is kind of tried and true, so it is a reliable source, and it's very easy. And it gives us instantaneous data, essentially. Outside of having to count the bugs, you know right away and can calculate that snapshot in time what your water quality rating is. So just to kind of give you more information on how we score the water quality rating. So once we take the abundance and the sensitivity scores, we calculate that out, and that gives us a rating here of 0 to 3 for excellent, all the way down to 10 for very poor. So these are the 10 sites that we sample in Manistee, and here you can see the average scores for the spring and fall, well, the average spring score, fall score, and average. And here you'll see that most of our fall scores are a little bit lower than the spring. So that is often due to droughts, recreation throughout the summer months, all things that take a toll on those macroinvertebrates in the system, which kind of goes to show what they can handle, essentially. In the spring, you have abundant new populations, and as things kind of wear and tear on that system throughout the summer months, you end up with lower scores in the fall. So that's another important aspect, is we want to look at the spring and fall so that we can really get an average for that year. So you can see from the 2024 ratings, the Manistee systems are all within the top 3 categories for water quality under the MyCore scoring system. So generally, we are pretty good. Occasionally, we do have outliers or dips and things, but this data set has been going since 2016. So it's new. We don't have enough data to really establish trend lines yet at this point, but as we collect more data and as we go on into the future, we will actually be able to look at trends over time and determine, what the next steps are. So before I kind of get into the volunteer aspect of it, I do want to talk about what those next steps are. So it's great, we have the information, we know that, yeah, our water quality is in good condition, or maybe it's poor, so what do you do with that afterwards? So a lot of this is trying to get down to the non-point source pollution issue that we have in our streams. So the nice thing about the volunteer stream monitoring program, if I go back to this slide, is we can actually map this out. So if this is our point, essentially this darker blue area is the watershed that drains directly to that point. So we can map from our points exactly how much surface area is draining to that single point. And if we start to see issues on a particular point, we can then work up that tributary to where it splits and maybe do some new sampling on those. And then that'll tell us, oh, it's coming from this direction or it's coming from this direction. And we can work upstream to try and figure out where the point source is for that pollution. And that's where the other conservation district services kick in. Maybe it's cows that are grazing across the creek system, or they're in the water. We can then work with that landowner to talk about conservation measures to keep cattle out of the creek, essentially. So again, our volunteer stream monitoring relies on volunteers. If you guys are interested, we would love to have you. So we do a spring sampling event in May. If you guys think that this is something you'd be interested in, please stop by my table, grab my card, get signed up for our email list, and we'll send that out as a sign up. It is a Saturday event, so most people are available, but I know a lot of people don't want to burn their Saturdays. But if you listen to that group of young kids that was sitting up here, they should have motivated you a little bit to get out and do something, right? So on the other side of the volunteer stream monitoring, I'm going to keep begging you guys too for your assistance throughout this whole presentation. So be ready for that, because that's what it's all about. Outside of just the volunteer stream monitoring, I also focus on the citizen science and the community engagement through our established groups. So right now in Manistee County, this is a map of essentially watersheds that have representation from groups. So you can see this is the Portage Lake area, this is Bear Lake and the Bear Creek watershed, and then this is the Little Manistee, and this is the Pine River. So you'll see right now that the lower portion of the Manistee River has no group representation. And that is something that I'm actively seeking help for. I want to set up a group for the Manistee River. I need you guys. I need people that are invested in caring about the Manistee River and want to do something. So if that's something that you have an interest in or feel like you want to be involved in, please reach out to me, because that's something that I really want to target. I want to have this entire county here covered in green. I want Manistee and the Peterson Creek. We should have representation for all sections of our watershed of groups doing those shoreline stabilization projects, doing tree plantings, and all of those things that are associated with keeping our watersheds clean. So another aspect, and I'll just be quick, I know we're kind of running over. So boat washing, so this is our Clean Drain Dry initiative. We do offer boat washing services. Grant funding usually is what funds these projects, which is sometimes hard to get, so we can't always offer them. And it's never, boat washes really aren't a permanent solution. You know, if we're out on a lake one day a year, there are so many other times. So really the focus of this is to get people to ask questions. You know, state law changed relatively recently about boating. If you are traveling with a boat down the road and there is any type of aquatic vegetation hanging off your boat or your trailer, you can be stopped and cited for that. You are now required by law to clean your boat off. There should be no vegetation. So that's kind of the purpose of what we're out there doing, is talking to boaters and recreators about clean, drain, dry your boats. And the reason that we're doing that is we do have non-native invasive exotic plants in our lakes. Portage Lake, Bear Lake, Manistee Lake, they all have non-native exotics that are extremely competitive, and they are something that spreads very easily. A small fragment from a plant is usually the best way to spread them, because you take a fragment and maybe it's on your boat for a week and you move it from Bear Lake to Portage Lake, you could introduce a new population from that little fragment of that plant. And I can tell you right now, because I help both the Bear Lake group and the Portage Lake group, Bear Lake or Portage Lake has plants that Bear Lake does not have yet. So they're, you know, very keen on keeping those plants out of their lake when they're only miles apart. So the other aspect is the direct to landowner. So protecting your land through land stewardship. Maybe you don't want to be involved on a regional level. Maybe you don't want to be part of a watershed group, but there's still things that you can do on your own property. So starting with a visit from the Conservation District staff, myself, Josh Shields, our forester, our MEP technician, we can go through and essentially do risk assessments on your property. Are you concerned? Do you know what level of conservation you have on your property? Most people don't. Maybe there's an issue that you're not aware of. We can bring it to your attention. One important thing to note too is we're not a regulatory agency. We're not there to slap fines on you. Everything that we do with you through the Conservation District is guidance and education. It's up to you to make a change, but we're there to tell you what changes you should make. And if you do decide to go through that, there are accreditation programs that you can go through. So you can see some of our producers. You'll often see this sign along 31. So this is the MEP sign for farms that are environmentally verified. So depending on your system that you're getting verified in, like the livestock system, cropping system, there's also a forest, wetland, and habitat system. Many people don't know that. A lot of times farmers, you know, they're so focused on their commodity, they forget about the back 40 woodlot that they, you know, cut every few years and don't really do anything else with. There is a whole assist system to get verified in your forest, wetlands, and wildlife habitat. So that's the MEP program. And then we also have access to cost share programs. So through the Conservation District, we partner with the USDA Natural Resource Conservation Service. We share an office. And through the Farm Bill, landowners like yourselves can get funds to do conservation. And not to be confused with some of the other programs out there. If you get money from the federal government, you have to allow access on your land, anything like that. Again, you're not forced into anything you don't want to do. It's all voluntary. But maybe you have an autumn olive issue. I can tell you right now, the state is not going to pump money into controlling autumn olive in Manistee County. It's beyond the control of state dollars for invasive species. One of the last places that you as an individual can get money to assist with that is through these NRCS cost share programs. So, and if we wanted to get into the talk about whether or not you should take care of invasive species on your own property when it's already in Manistee County, that's a very long conversation, but I'll tell you my short answer is yes, it's worth it to do. And if you want to come talk to me at the table afterward, I'll explain why. Also, our household hazardous waste. So this is kind of staying on the topic, being World Water Day. all of the things that we do just focused on protecting water quality in Manistee County. So I think the household hazardous waste is a pretty well-known program that the Conservation District runs, whether you know the Conservation District is the one doing it or not. But most people know of what it is. And you can see just here in 2024, we collected 64,000 pounds of household hazardous waste. That's pesticides, fertilizers, cleaners, electronics, all things that would have gone to the landfill or out into the back 40 somewhere without this program. So this is something that every year we offer. It's always the third Saturday in August at the Road Commission building on 31. If you've got things to get rid of, please bring it to us. We'd much rather take it there and have it disposed of properly than have you guys doing something you shouldn't be doing with it. So just here is kind of a breakdown of those HHW numbers. So you can see down here, 2024 was a very high year for us. And that is something too, I do want to point out, it is a free service for you guys. We ask for donations day of, but those donations really do help to keep this program going. That 2024 year, we were about $54,000 over budget for recycling all of that material. Luckily, the state stepped up and helped offset some of that cost, but this is a program we want to keep going, and we need your support for that as well. So to essentially wrap up how you guys can get involved, the volunteer stream monitoring program is great fun. Everybody always enjoys it. The people that have been doing it since we started are still doing it, which is a problem because they're starting to age out. So we want people, you know, if you've got children or grandchildren that are moving back to the area, we really don't have an age restriction on getting kids out in the river as long as you feel that they're going to be safe. I typically tell people about 13 years and up, but we have had younger. If you've got kids or grandkids that you want to bring, there's jobs where they don't have to get in the water. They get to sit at a table, pick through bugs. They get a lot of enjoyment out of it. So attending our workshops. I didn't really talk about those. I talked about our programs that we specifically run, but we do host on average 30 to 50 workshops a year in Manistee County that are available to the public. Everything from, you know, what to do with your woodlot, how to file your taxes after you have a timber sale. We have a seed swap event coming up at partnership with the county library. In the next couple of weeks, we have our annual tree sale events. So those are all things that you guys can be involved in. And then just practicing responsible land stewardship on your own. I think that really is where it should all start, but we're here to help you do that if you have questions. And then again, supporting your local watershed groups. This is another thing where there needs to be replacements, people that can take the initiative to kind of fill the gaps, because if we go through a period of time where you've got one person that's kind of taking everything on and putting it on their shoulders and they can't do it anymore, we could lose all that hard work that has gone into that watershed by just not having anybody willing to carry the torch on. So if you're in the Manistee area specifically and you want to be involved, I would love to talk to you about what we can do to get representation for the lower Manistee watershed as well. And then stay in the loop. Subscribe to our email distribution list. You get our annual reports. You get notified of all the events that we have. Everything that we have going on is available to you. And if you guys are savvy enough to use QR codes, there are QR codes for our website, Facebook, and then also a direct one to sign up for our email list if you are interested. And that's all I have. So if anybody has any questions,